Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, villains and villainesses, welcome to the Ground and Pound cast. Vince is out this week because he had to take his family to Disney World. And while he's off suffering the long lines, Rick and I are here to bring you all of the fight news from this past weekend. Rick, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody. These fights didn't take long, but we'll certainly talk about it.
Man, talk about didn't take long. I don't remember the last time we had a card where everything finished on the main card.
Yeah, I mean, it was every card came up aces. Everybody talks about, oh, we need more finishes and we're getting too many decisions. Well, if you watch this card, you should have been satisfied.
Which, it's surprising because I've been saying that the new matchmaking is a lot more even matchups. And with the exception of Grasso versus Barber, these were all really even matchups. Just somebody made a mistake and the other guy capitalized on it in every single one.
Yep. And it just shows you how this game goes because you can have the perfect game plan. You could fight the perfect fight even for a long, extended period of time. Obviously, these were much shorter fights, but you make one mistake, you drop your hand here, you turn this way, and boom, you're catching a right hand and it's over. And it just highlights that you cannot make any mistakes at any time, or else in this game, it can end quick.
That's the benefit of being at the highest level. You get to see people who can capitalize on any misstep and really make something happen.
Yep, I agree. And you look, I mean, I guess we'll go ahead and jump right into it. You look at Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer on paper, and
Izzy was winning that fight going into the last minute and a half. He was
absolutely.
he was dominating with outside leg kicks and keeping himself moving until he decided to stand and bang. He had that fight completely under control.
Adesanya in his last three losses now was winning every fight until he wasn't. And it's just kind of interesting to see. But, Adesanya being an excellent counter striker, he's fighting Joe Pyfer, and I did pick Joe Pyfer to win. But after that first round, I didn't feel too confident. But it just goes to show you how when things get a little crazy and Izzy decided to stand in there with him, as a counter striker, you kind of want to lean on the other guy to dance first, take that first step. Izzy kind of got into an exchange. And while he's proven that he can do that, I mean, we think of the Alex Pereira fight where he knocks him out when they're standing there, his back's against the cage and knocks him out. Joe Pyfer, he has explosive power too, but he was just able to catch him. He had a big right hook that knocked out Adesanya. He wobbled him, and he shoots him to the fence. Pyfer just took control after he had that one big damaging blow. And again, Adesanya was winning until he wasn't. And what are your thoughts? Like, how do you feel about Joe Pyfer? How do you feel about Adesanya? Do you think the right guy won? I know that seems kind of silly to say after a TKO, but I mean, Adesanya was winning that fight for the majority of the duration of that fight. Do you think that, that fight went the way it would go, the majority out of 10 times per se? Would Joe Pyfer beat Adesanya 7 out of 10? Or what do you think?
No, I think that 4 out of 10 Piper wins, 6 out of 10 on Adesanya wins, but I've got to give it to Izzy. I really respect that after his losing streak recently, he was still willing to stand there and exchange. Izzy hasn't gotten to be a less effective fighter. He's a little bit older. He's a fraction of a moment slower than he used to be. So he's not able to get away with getting in and out and dodging and exchanging the way he used to. And unfortunately, at this level, that fraction of a moment is enough to make all the difference. And I was really impressed that Piper capitalized on the situation. That he was able to immediately get on Izzy, get him to the ground, mount, and then when Izzy tried to get out, Izzy did everything right from the bottom, and Piper took his back. It was just two extremely high level fighters, and I love this fight.
Yeah, I loved it too. I thought it was a very entertaining fight, albeit again, it didn't last super long like any of the other fights, but it was highly competitive. And Joe Pyfer, I mentioned it on the last podcast, black belt in jiu-jitsu, and we saw the ground game on display. Everybody thinks of Pyfer for those nukes that he throws. But man, that's a guy who is number 14 heading into this fight. He fought a top 5 guy. He's on a tear. I could see him being, I'm not sure where the rankings are going to put him, but I think he's probably going to land somewhere in that 6 to 7 range. And he's probably one more big top 5 win away from a title shot. And Israel Adesanya, a victory over that guy, even though he's older, even though he's not, peak Adesanya, it still matters. Adesanya is a legend to the game. Adesanya is still a guy who has shown he's competitive with anybody. Amavov, he was beating Amavov until he got caught. He's just a step slower than he used to be. He's still super dangerous, but I mean, Amavov's the number 1 guy in the division, and he was winning that fight. So for Joe Pyfer to go in there and handle Adesanya, man, that's quite a statement, and I don't think people should overlook that just because Adesanya's lost a few. That's still a massive victory and an incredible notch on the belt for Joe Pyfer. So I'm excited to see where he goes.
My favorite fighter of all time is Georges St. Pierre. I know that's a little cliche, but it's because GSP always fought the best person he could fight. He never ran from someone. He never turned down an opportunity to test what he was really made of. And you rack up some losses whenever you're constantly fighting the best. That's what happens at this point in the game. Uh, but Izzy has shown that he isn't afraid to go in there, even after a couple losses, and bang with the best of them. And I really respect the heck out of that.
I do too. A lot of guys in his situation, they'd have found a tomato can. He'd have gotten back in the win column. People would be singing his praises. They'd be hyping up his next fight already. But I mean, there's a lot to be said for saying, no, I don't want the easy path. I either want to, go out and win with the sword or die on the sword. And he died on the sword, so to speak, but he has nothing to hang his head on. This guy, some people would tell you is the best middleweight of all time. I would disagree. I'd say it's Anderson Silva, but regardless, the fact it's a conversation, he's top 2. I don't think there's really, maybe you can think of somebody else who might be top 2 that I'm not thinking of that would be ahead of those guys, but I think he's consensus. Yeah. I don't know
he's moved
though.
on from the division, but
yeah, I mean, he obviously has his win over Adesanya and stuff, but he also got knocked out by him. I don't think he had a long enough run though. Adesanya, there was not at middleweight. There was a run there for Adesanya where, I mean, it didn't matter who he was put in front of. He just dominated, in his own way, but he just absolutely dominated for years. And that's kind of what I think of when I think of all time. Anderson Silva's run might be the best of all time, even to this day, his middleweight championship run. But I think Adesanya is a close second, a very close second.
yeah, actually, I had gotten out of mixed martial arts watching when I moved from Louisiana to Colorado years ago, and it was seeing Izzy fight that got me back into the sport. So he's always going to be one of my favorite fighters. And after 4 losses, you normally would be like, maybe it's time to retire. I don't want to see you go out with ruining your record or ruining your legacy. But I don't think he's ruining his legacy on anything but paper. Every fight, he's winning until he isn't.
Yeah, every single one. And again, against elite guys. He's not fighting guys that aren't ranked. He's not fighting guys that aren't up and comers even. Joe Pyfer, while he's a lower rank at 14, is an up and comer. Amavov, of course, we know is number 1, and he's been fighting nothing but elites his whole career, and even still has a tremendous record.
Exactly.
So I got nothing but respect.
Who do you think Izzy should get a hold of next?
So, we've talked about it before, even in the text chain, and I've actually said on this podcast, I wanted to see Israel Adesanya fight Michael Venom Page. But after watching Michael Venom Page's boring fight and realizing styles make fights and they're both counter strikers, I had to think about it a little bit. I'm like, no, that actually has a chance to be super boring. So I think he needs to fight somebody that's going to bring the fight to him, because that's when you get the best version of Adesanya. And that's when you have those entanglements that really he shows off that elite kickboxing that we've come to love. At middleweight, I'm pulling it up now here. No,
So
I was
while you're pulling that up, my thought is Izzy has been talking on socials and on YouTube a lot about how he's been putting in the work to become a more well-rounded fighter and working on his grappling. I was hoping to see some of that grappling this time, and I think the best person for him to make his next fight against is RDR.
Ooh, yeah. Well, talk about jumping into the deep end of the pool for the grappling. That would certainly qualify. That wouldn't be a bad one at all. I could see that. I don't know at this point though. I just don't know where the UFC wants to go with this guy because obviously
Yeah.
you can put him at the top of a bill, even still 4 straight losses. You could still put him at the top of a bill. But looking at the rankings, it's kind of guys he's already beaten or guys that have beaten him. Or then there's just bad matchups. Like I look at like a RoboCop, like Adesanya 2 or 3 years ago probably walks right through a RoboCop, but I don't know if he's going to be able to, stand there and exchange with a RoboCop. Now, maybe that's a perfect opportunity for him to take him to the ground, but I don't know because after 4 losses, you have to think he's pretty much out of title contention. He's 36 years old. So does he just take big names just for the sake of big names? Does he try and get wins? He's not about that, as we just talked about. So it kind of puts him in a weird spot. Maybe you could have just some fun stylistic matchup fights. Maybe he moves around a little bit. I know he's the middleweight, king for some. When I watched him fight, I don't know if you noticed this. When I watched him when he got into the octagon, he looked a little heavy. And you never say that about Adesanya because he's always like super rail thin. He looked a little pudgy to me. And I only say that because maybe there's a 170. I don't know how hard he'd have to kill himself to get to 170, but just for the sake of having new matchups, because middleweight, he's kind of exhausted all the options. I mean, I'm looking at him, Robert Whitaker, Cannonier, Paul Acosta. There's all these guys here. RDR would be fun, and RDR needs a win, so maybe that is the fight. You probably nailed it. But otherwise, I don't see a whole lot of names that make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and you don't want to, like you said, you don't want to put him up against another counter striker. Now, if he was fighting someone like Venom Page, I think that he would bring the fight to him.
And maybe so, maybe that's a guy where we just saw Venom Page get booed. We know how electric he is, but maybe he would take it upon himself to say, you know what, if I'm not winning the championship, I'm going to make it fun for the fans. And he's always been a fan favorite. He knows how to entertain, even from his walkouts. The man's been known to entertain. So maybe that's a situation where he's like, you know what, I'm just going to bring it to this guy. And because Venom Page will return fire, there's no doubt about that. He just needs the right dance partner. So maybe so. Maybe Venom Page could come up and that would be a fun matchup, but he would have to push the pace. And I just don't know if that's something that he's comfortable doing. I think he's more than capable of doing it, but it's just not something we're used to seeing. But again, at this age and with his 4 straight losses, maybe he's going to look to change it up just to bring the fun back. Maybe just a whole different style training camp and just do something different. Hey, I'm going to push the fight and we'll see what happens. I could see him doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we got to talk about what's next for Pyfer because he just decapitated a dragon.
He did.
He's got to get somebody in the top, at least top seven.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and I think there's 2 names that make a lot of sense. Brendan Allen's always looking for a good fight. Man, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And again, both of these guys are black belts in jiu-jitsu, but I'd give Pyfer the advantage standing, although Brendan Allen is way more than capable in the feet. So I think that would just be fireworks, and that's a potential title, eliminator / title setup, situation. Those guys would be right there in the middle of contention with a win over one another. And of course, Fluffy Hernandez is coming off that loss where he did not look any good at all against Sean Strickland. But prior to that was on a tear, like 10 straight wins. Maybe that's a chance for him to get right and he can fight Pyfer and jump back up there. Or again, Pyfer could use him. He's number 7 in the rankings. He could catapult up into the top 5 if he's not already in the top 5 when they update this. He'll be in that area, though. So those 2 guys, you're talking a potential top 6 or 7, 7, 8 matchup. I think either make a lot of sense. If I was matchmaking, I would give him Brendan Allen because these are 2 really, really, really hot guys that have really good stylistic matchups that, again, the winner can catapult themselves into a title shot. So I think Brendan Allen makes a lot of sense, the local guy.
I was thinking Brendan Allen. The other name that I had on the top of my head was Caio Baralho. I think that would make an epic fight.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely,
Caio
bro.
Caio is not afraid to bring the fight to him. He's not afraid to stand and bang. He's got a great ground game. He's well rounded, and I think that Pyfer against somebody well rounded is his next test. But Allen fills that bill just as well.
Yeah, I think either way, you don't have any issues. I mean, both of those guys would be they'd be fantastic matchups. Who's Kyle fighting next? Isn't he fighting soon? I'm
Let me
looking it
see.
up, but I didn't know if you knew maybe off the top of your head. I feel like he has a big matchup coming up. I'm looking it up.
Nope, I
Let's
don't
see.
see anything when I just Google it.
Yeah, me either. So yeah, maybe so. That's another great option. You know, a guy who's right there in the mix as well, a top 5 guy, would make a lot of sense.
Now, we've already talked for longer on this fight than the fight lasted, and I think we're about to do that again because the beautiful Alexa Grasso against the gorgeous Macy Barber. I've never seen anything like that before,
That
especially
was
not out of the women's division.
I mean, and we know we have our thoughts about the women's divisions and what have you, but I'm going to say especially just ever. I mean, that is the best finish of all time. I think you could argue. Now, maybe not for significance, but I'm talking just pure violence. We're talking about a knockout, tap out. I mean, there was no tapping to be had because she was already knocked out. Her tongue was hanging out of her head like a dead deer. It was
I
frightening.
didn't think that you could be fast enough to get somebody's back, put two hooks in and a rear naked before they hit the ground from a seated position.
And the ref was on top of it. He was all over it. This isn't one of those situations where like, oh God, what was the ref doing? You know, oh, is this a Mazzagatti situation? It wasn't that at all. This was the ref jumped Carlos Beltran. Good Lord, that's baseball. Uh, Mike Beltran jumps in there immediately. But I mean, Grasso was so quick. She got in there, knocks her out, takes her back, rolls her over. It was all textbook and it was sunk in deep. I felt legit bad for Barber, and it was kind of strange, you know. So Barber, after it's all said and done, and Beltran knocks her off, Grasso off of her, you know, she kind of like Macy Barber kind of like tries to get her bearings. She grabs onto Beltran and then just rolls over and lays there for like 7 to 8 minutes.
Yeah,
And it
it
was
goes back out.
yeah, and you could see her breathing, but if you couldn't see her breathing, you would think she was dead. Like
Dude, I
it looked
honestly for a
bad.
moment there thought that we had our first statistic in the UFC.
Yeah,
I
it
really
looked
did.
like it. It did, man. It was frightening. I was
But
looking at it like,
what's even more impressive here is how Grasso pieced her apart. That wasn't a fluke shot. Barber was using that right hook over and over again, and Grasso kept pelting her with the left straight. She hit it 3 or 4 times in the first 2 minutes. It was just that last time, bam, it took her off her feet. Grasso goes for the back, hits that right hook on the
oh
chin, puts
man,
her out, and then cinches it up.
it was, you know, and Grasso's known for her boxing. And, you know, she hadn't had a win in a while. I think it had been like 3 years, you know, just I don't think she was all that active, but she also had some tough matchups. But man, she just reminded the world, like, hey, these hands are for real. And you don't really see that out of the women's game, much less at these lighter weight classes. But I mean, we're talking flyweight here. So 125, regardless, really, men or women, you just don't really see a lot of knockouts at that weight class. But man, that was a clean right hook. And I mean, it just completely discombobulated Barber, it knocked her out. And I don't know. I don't think I've ever been so impressed slash concerned because to your
Yeah.
point, I thought that we might be looking at that first statistic. And to be honest with you, as a mixed martial arts fan, a UFC fan, that's kind of the thing I'm always worried about in the back of my head because if and when that ever does happen, I think things are going to get regulated differently. And the sport, as we know and love, I don't know that we'll ever see it be the same. So it's very important to me that I could tell my friends, my family, you know, I've told my mom, I'm like, no one's ever died in the octagon. And I'm proud of that. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to be, oh, it's human cockfighting. No, it's not. No one's ever died in the octagon. You could say that with a straight face. I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to say that. That was violent.
Yeah, and I've got to give a lot of props to Barber because after someone loses, especially someone loses in a fashion so devastating, they usually come out and make excuses. Barber's made her statements, said that it's rough to watch her looking like she's dead there, but she hasn't made excuses. She hasn't gone, my shoulder was tweaked, my knee was sore, I had a headache the night before. She hasn't made any excuses. She's given all the credit to Grasso and done it with dignity. And
Yeah.
Grasso really impressed me just sitting on her knees and waiting for them to get Barbara up, though it took a ridiculous amount of time for her to come to. Grasso didn't rush it. She wasn't worried about her post fight interview. She was worried that she had actually hurt Barbara. And that's respect.
Nothing but. And that's what we know and we've come to love about this sport. There's so much respect. When you think about all the different sports, and you really see so much bad sportsmanship throughout all the sports, whether it's in football and, somebody sacks the quarterback and jumps up and does some celebration dance, this, that, the other. We're talking about people in combat and it's life or death. Obviously we haven't seen death, but it is life or death in there. They lock
Yeah.
that cage and you don't know if you're walking out. So when that happens, when a moment like this happens where somebody's laid out because of what you did, you would hope they would show some respect and concern. And they usually do. And Grasso is a perfect example of that. Somebody who really cares about their opponent. You're not in there to kill anybody. You're in there to win a fight. And sometimes things go a little crazy and maybe people get a little more injured than they should, but you're not in there to try and end anybody. And, nothing but class from Miss Grasso. I really like that. I always enjoy that. I love when you see these wars and, there's blood all over the place, but at the end of it, they hug, they raise each other's hands. That stuff I thoroughly enjoy. And that's one of the big reasons I'm a mixed martial arts fan. There's a lot of respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what do you think is next for Grasso after that? Do you think she did enough to earn a rematch with Shevchenko?
I don't think Shevchenko has a whole lot of stiff competition. That's part of the reason why they brought Zhang Wei Li up there. And so after a performance like that, who's not going to remember that? And I know that it wasn't, a numbered card. And I know maybe not a lot of people saw it live, but you can believe in a Twitter world, an X world, people saw the clips, the highlights,
The
and
memes.
they know who she is, which is probably the most important part. So when you put a name to a face and then you say, okay, this is what she just did, I don't really know who else you'd put. I think that's a great, Shevchenko matchup. I think that's the next person in line at this point. I mean, people are going to want to watch that. I'll put it to you like that. I don't really know who else they'd want to watch more at this point.
Yeah, and that's a fight that I'm interested in seeing. I really think that, to end an 8 fight win streak and in that dominant a fashion in just at a minute, yeah, it's she proved that what she needed to do to or I'm sorry, just at 3 minutes or just before 3 minutes. But she proved that she's got that killer instinct and she's as sharp as she ever was. I think that Shevchenko's got her hands full if they give Grasso that fight. Now,
Absolutely. And of course they fought a couple times before. They know each other well. And I think that's one of those things. It's been enough time that's passed that, to see them get in there again, I think people could get excited for it.
yeah. Now Barber, I don't think that she needs to fight too far down the rankings to after this fight. I think that she just got caught. She got picked apart for an opening in her game that she needs to close. She uses too many hooks. Everyone knows that a straight punch is going to get there faster than a looping one. But I think Barber up next needs to fight Vicious? Judavicius? How do I say that?
Vicious. Jazz Vicious. That's all I got for you.
All right. I don't have Vinny here to tell me how not to pronounce it.
Jasmine Jazzadavicious.
But I think that that would be a good fight for her to get her feet back under her and start rebuilding that win streak.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I'm not as well versed with the female game. I'll be the first to tell you that. But I think, a top 10 competitor suits her fine. I mean, again, she lost, she got caught. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at this level. As long as it's not a consistent thing, then I don't think you need to lose your step in line too far. Drop back a couple spots and let's see what happens in the next one.
Yep. Now, up next, we have another welterweight fight where both of these gentlemen were retiring. This was last fight for Chiesa and for Price.
That's right.
And
Chiesa was the local guy, fighting out of Washington.
yep,
And Price, we talk about, I'm going to say it, we laugh amongst us, but the gatekeeper stuff. Nico Price has a pretty rough record and not even gatekeeper worthy. And so, it was interesting. I heard a lot of people talking before this fight, like they set this up for Chiesa because this is going to be an easy win. And as somebody who hasn't seen a lot of Nico Price, it sounds like they knew what they were talking about.
yeah, and Chiesa impressed me. I'm surprised that this was his last fight because he went out there and was dominant. He got the takedown, got Price's back, and finished it with hardly any hesitation.
I mean, it was a hot knife through butter. It really was. It was a real quick and easy. I really no resistance, I think Nico went out there and tried to do his thing, but he never obviously had an opportunity to do his thing. Chiesa just immediately shoots for the takedown, gets it, and that rear naked choke was in quicker than you could blink.
And it was tight. Oh my God,
Oh,
was
it was
that tight?
tight. Yeah.
But that's Chiesa's bread and butter is that rear naked choke. He's won, I think, 11 of his fights by rear naked.
Second most of all time. I thought it was 8. I guess we could look at that. But regardless, it's the second most of all time. I was sitting there watching it with the wife, and I was like, this is what my wife, for people who don't know, she does jujitsu. She's a blue belt. So I'm like, hey, you might want to watch this guy. He gets those rear naked chokes. And I mean, before I could finish saying it, the
It
guy
was
was
over.
putting a rear naked choke on Nico Price. Man.
Yeah, the only critique I have on this one actually goes towards Daniel Cormier. I really was disappointed that Cormier didn't interview Price afterwards since he was retiring too.
What was the deal with that? I heard that, there was something to be like Cormier had said something to it. I wasn't able to actually catch up and find out, but typically they do go to the retired fighter. I mean, that's standard procedure. I'm curious as to why that didn't take place.
What Cormier said is that he started the Chiesa interview without thinking about the Price interview. And when he realized his mistake, he didn't think it would be right to interview the loser after the winner.
I guess I just don't understand the logic there, but okay. I mean, I'm sure that he has a reason or thought behind that. But yeah, I mean, people make mistakes. It happens.
Yeah, just a little bit disrespectful, but DC doesn't make those kind of mistakes often.
No, he's great at what he does. So we got to give everybody a little slack from time to time.
Yep. And up next at featherweight, Julian Erosa versus Larian Douglas. Another
I,
3-minute first round knockout.
So they talk about, like fight of the night and performance of the night, or I think they just kind of start making up stuff at some point. But the guy I was most impressed with, Larian Douglas, that's a name I will not forget. This man
No.
throws absolute hammers. It looked like a middleweight was in there fighting a featherweight, just as far as the hand power, not as far as the size of the guy, but every time he hit Rosa, it's like even jabs were sitting him down, consistently sitting him down, just straight jabs. And then,
And,
my God, don't let him wind up on you. This guy was throwing, I said it in the group chat, he was throwing like Ilya Taporia. I know I've mentioned Taporia a couple times on the pod. I'm not talking footwork. I'm talking just absolute power. For a little man, for a man at 145 to hit that hard, I don't know that I've seen anything like it this side of Taporia. I mean, that guy was throwing thunder. It was unbelievable. It's like somebody was playing a video game and put the sliders to max power. And every time he hit Erosa just, man, it just shook his foundation. Like every part of that man's body was jiggling. I haven't seen
Larian
anything quite like Douglas in a long time, man. I'm very excited to watch this guy fight again.
Yeah, Larian came out, and those leg kicks starting off the fight were just
Right.
devastating. Arosa was having a hard time standing on his right leg after the first minute of the fight. And then, like you said, Larian, every time his jab would land, it would sit Arosa down. And he didn't follow it up. He didn't chase him to the ground. He let him get back up and then sat him back down again.
Oh man. I'm
That
blown
was a
away. I
deciding
am
fight.
blown away, man. When I tell you, I watch a bunch of fights as we all do, and if you're listening, I know you do too. I would challenge the people who listen. Have you seen a guy just throw jabs and just knock somebody down consistently with a jab? I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this ever.
No, he pieced them apart nice and easy.
Man, he sure did. That was, I'm telling you, I got to find out when he fights again. Obviously, they're still probably figuring all this stuff out. He's got to recover, all this, that, and the other. Although there's really not much to recover from. He put on a clinic and it didn't last all that long, nor did any of the fights, but only 333 into the first round. But that's a guy they need to turn around quick. That's a man you could build off of. That's a guy who could potentially get in there for a title. I didn't see his ground game, so maybe that's his weakness. But again, with all these stylistic matchups that they're trying to do, put that man in there against another striker. Let me see it because I was thoroughly entertained.
Yeah, now neither of those guys was ranked going into this, but I think that that Douglas definitely earned his spot in the top 15 rankings, and he needs somebody coming up who has a higher rank.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is where you want to see him fight somebody with a ranking so that you can get, legitimize him being in the rankings himself. But I'm looking, you never want to throw a guy in the deep end right off the jump. But if you're looking for like 11 through 15, I'll just rattle these names off. Tell me if anybody really jumps out at you. Brian Ortega, which I don't think that's the matchup you want just because of the jiu-jitsu. I don't think you want
Yeah,
to throw him in there versus that guy. You got Melky Zale Acosta. You got Pitbull, David Onama, and here's one for you. And he's definitely on his way out. But wow, this would be awesome. Josh Emmett. Give me some Josh Emmett, Larry, and Douglas action. Oh my God.
yeah, that would be a banger.
Whoo, certified banger.
I think we agree. Emmett would be a good one for him to go. My number two pick would be Pitbull.
Yeah. I think a great chance to display his skills versus an aging guy who still has a ranking attached. Either way, but man, I think Josh Emmett, that would be the one. If you just want pure chaos, that's the fight right there, man.
And Erosa, I think that his next step is probably going to be one championship, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know really how you go in there. Now, I do think Douglas has made quite a name for himself. But again, if you're looking at it just from the 30,000 foot view, he fought a guy that's not ranked that got sat down consistently with jabs. I have to keep saying it because my mind's still processing that. I mean, there was like 3 or 4 jabs that sat him down. So from that perspective, I don't know if he's UFC caliber, man. I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't prove to me that he belongs in the UFC, and honestly, he could have just been that far outclassed. I wouldn't say cut him after one, but his record is 31-14. At best, he's resigned to Koopa Troopa status because I
There it
refuse
is.
to say the other word.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, 31-14. That shows you he's been in the game forever. So he's not on his way up. He's more than likely on his way out.
Yeah. So I don't see big things coming from Erosa.
No.
All right, now another middleweight matchup that was a banger. We got Abdul Malik versus Yusuri Belgari. I
Yep.
had to remember it's like the French. Yes,
Wee
because
wee.
yes, he really won this fight.
Yes, he really did. And quick little quiz here. Who is coaching him? Who's the man he's been learning from? Do we
I
know?
don't know who Belgari was learning from, but Malik had my least favorite fighter in his corner,
Who's
Brad
that, sir?
Tavares.
Oh, Brad Tavares. Well, Belgari has Alex Piera.
Really?
So, yeah. And when you watch that fight, It really reminded me of Alex Pereira because I'm watching a guy who's throwing these quick little calf kicks. He's not really selling. He just popping them in there. And then he's throwing shots to the body. You know, Pierre is known for he'll throw that right cross to the body. It sets up the left hook because you drop your hands, and that's when he finished you off with that left hook. But he looked a lot like, and I even put it in the text, he's like a lighter handed Pierre. I mean, the guy moves like him, he hits like him. He just doesn't have the power. When he hits, people don't just crumble like we see with Poetan, but everything else about the man very, very much like Alex Perry, resembled him a lot. I mean, really did. I thought Malik came out, it was aggressive. He looked like he wanted to bring the fight to the guy, but Bulgari's got that long reach, and it wasn't easy to get close on him because every time he tried to close the distance, Bulgari had something for him. Very,
And
very quick hands, but I think really impressed me the most was those calf kicks, man. I mean, it really kind of softened him up and sets up everything else. When you can blow these guys' tires out, and then they start worrying about their legs, it opens up the body and the head. So
the
very
crazy
impressed.
thing about it was that after he softened up the legs and Malik couldn't get away, he kept landing those knees to the head over and
Oh,
over and over
violent.
again. I've never seen somebody as proficient with high knees as Belgari showed in that fight.
Yeah. You know, it was shades of Anderson Silva. I think back to Anderson Silva when he get guys in that clinch,
Yep.
and then like he just bring their head down onto his knee. And I mean, it didn't take many of those, especially from Silva. But I mean, to really weaponize knees like that, I haven't seen that since probably the Silva days. I mean that guy used his knees so effectively. So if you were getting in close, you were catching a knee. If it wasn't to the body, it was to the head. And I mean, there was really nowhere to go. If you stood on the outside, he was going to catch you all day with those long arms. And so Malik was a guy who looked like he was ready to bring the fight, but he just never could figure out the distance, never could figure out the timing. Bagari is a good counter striker. So again, every time he tried to close the distance, he was getting caught with something coming in. If he got in, he was getting clinched and taking knees. If he was standing on the outside, he was getting his calves kicked. He
And
never
eating
could figure out the
punches.
puzzle.
No, it was a puzzle that was made for the advanced player, and Malik was not that player tonight or Saturday night.
No, that's a guy that I'm sure has beat up a lot of weaker competition. That's how he got into the UFC. But you see the levels to the striking game. I mean, really, all of it. It's all around. It's mixed martial arts. But this particular fight was a strike fest, and he just was severely outclassed. That's all that was.
Yeah, Belgari's going to be climbing the rankings, and I think he's going to be a problem at middleweight very, very quickly. Or
Yeah, I agree. The top end of that middleweight's very tough, but I think there's definitely some room in there towards the back end where we can start seeing him make a push and ultimately, be in competition with some of these guys to get closer to that belt. Pulling up the middleweight real quick. Is there anybody you think that would be a good contest for him next? Anybody that comes to mind right off the bat, or
one of my
what do you?
favorite fighters is in perfect position in the rankings to step in on this, and that's Paulo Costa. I think that Costa would give him a good, solid challenge. He can actually check a leg kick, so that
Yeah,
that wouldn't be the problem that it was in the beginning with Malik. And yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see Costa fight him.
I like it. And if you're Costa, do you take a fight against a guy who isn't as well known, who isn't ranked? How does he feel about the UFC coming to him and saying, "Hey, look, there's all these guys in front of you, but we want you to go fight somebody from behind you." At this point in his career, that's kind of a message like, "Hey, we think you're kind of done." Not, "Hey, we think, with the right next couple of fights, you could be back in contention." But that said, a payday's a payday, and maybe that's what he has to take. I like that fight. I also like Jared Cannonier. I think Jared Cannonier sitting there with the 10 next to his name at 42, 43 years of age is quite appealing. Maybe
Yeah.
he's ripe for the taking as well. So I think one of those two guys would be a real nice matchup for him.
And Cannonier, as fast as he's able to get in and out, especially with this last fight, how he kept his hands down, he would be able to counter those knees and control a lot better than what Malik was able to.
Right. Yeah. And again, Cannonier's a guy who's been in a championship fight. He fought Israel Adesanya a few years back. He's older, but he's still got it, So I don't know if he's the number 10 guy. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but he's certainly a very, very big competitor, a very worthy competitor. And so I think that would be a great matchup.
Yeah. And up next, we've got a guy who can't seem to make it out of the first minute, and Terrence McKinney defeating Kyle Nelson.
T Rex, man, T Rex. I was hyping this guy up a little bit too. I mean, he's had a ton of first round finishes. T Rex has been around for a while. He's got the second most finishes in lightweight history, which is wild because he seems kind of fairly new, at least to me. I mean, I've heard of him and seen him a few times, but to think he's been around long enough to accumulate those stats is kind of the mind blowing thing for me.
Yeah.
It's a guy I was saying, don't blink, and 24 seconds in, it's over. In a night of quick finishes, this was the quickest one, and I just want to see more Terrence McKinney, and I don't even necessarily mean like I need to see more fights. I just like to see like more fight time. His fights on average going into this were 2 minutes and 47 seconds. We haven't seen a lot of him. He's kill or be killed style type fighter, which me personally, that's what I'm all about. Let me see guys who want to go out there and lay it all on the line. I don't need to see guys dance around for 15 minutes like Michael Venom Page did. And I want to see action. And this guy brings it. And he brings it in the highest fashion. He brings that high level striking. And he also just brings a certain level of I don't care. Like, it's one thing to say he's a great striker. He is. But there's also like you got to put your neck on the line to win in 24 seconds, man. You're not going out there like trying to figure a guy out. You're just going through a guy. And that's exactly what happened to Kyle Nelson. He was meat on the table and the lion came to eat.
He has the second shortest average fight time in the whole UFC behind Tom
Aspinall.
Aspinall. And he showed how he's earned that in this fight.
Yeah. I mean, quick work of Kyle Nelson. And from what I've seen from Kyle Nelson, I kind of figured it'd be quick work.
Yeah.
Kyle Nelson does the same style stuff. I think McKinney just brings a higher volume and he just brings more power. So if you're going to stand in there and bang, which I have nothing but respect for, it's not going to always work out, especially when you start getting to these Terrence McKinney style guys that, I mean, it's just a freak show. Now, like Mike Tyson, if you can get out of the first round, you can absolutely beat Terrence McKinney. But can you make it out of the first round? Can you make it out of the first minute of the first round, especially when he's fully juiced up and ready to roll? And Kyle Nelson had nothing for him.
No, not at all. And, it's another fight where neither of the guys were ranked going into it. But I don't see where you don't put McKinney in the top 15 after a win like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's an obvious one that he needs to overtake. That lightweight division is just a murderer's row, right? I
Yeah.
mean, top to bottom, it's just absolutely insane. And there's so many guys that aren't even ranked I could rattle off that we've all heard of. But I mean, let's give the man a ranked contest. Now, Michael Chandler, we know he's fighting at the White House and he's got a number next to him, 13. I think that would be a lot of fun, but I think Chandler might be done after this next fight. I don't know. He's probably still trying to make money from all the years he waited on Conor McGregor. So maybe that's an option down the road. I don't know. But I do see some older guys here. Now, Dariush, now he's, of course, going to be a guy who's going to want to bring it to the mat. That's not going to be a fun stylistic matchup. But Fiziev, can you imagine Fiziev and T-Rex? I mean, two elite strikers just going at it. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think Fiziev is the obvious next choice for this. I don't think he has anything scheduled right now.
Right.
His last fight was,
we saw him recently fight Mauricio Hoofy.
Yeah, it wasn't very long ago. So
T-Rex took no damage at all. So, I mean, he could probably fight Saturday if they wanted to. So, yeah, that might be the one, up and coming in a couple months or so.
Yep. And then Nelson, I'm not interested in seeing any more out of him at this point. He's going to have to show that he can make it with a unranked striker more than 30 seconds before I can even endorse him to try and get another fight.
Kyle Nelson is prelim Apex card worthy, sir.
Yes. Which that's the craziest thing about this. It was an Apex card.
It was. It was. I rag on Apex cards, and I'll still stand by that, deservedly so. But man, it's now, so I think it's a cop out, and we're all guilty of saying this, all of us, all three of us. And I think most people are as well. Dana White always has the classic line, well, you can't judge it until the fights are over. But no, man, like on paper, we can say, well, this isn't a big matchup. And it stands to reason when you go to the Apex, you don't have bigger names on the card. I mean, it's just true. It's the facts of the situation. They'll typically put a big name in the main event or two, sometimes just one though. Maybe you'll even have a good co-main, but the Apex is how they fill out the rest of their roster and give them fights that are, on TV or what have you. But this Apex card delivered. And, you got to give it credit where it's due. The matchups were great. There was finishes galore. That's what we all like to see. But typically these Apex cards aren't the best. They just aren't. So when I say Kyle Nelson's a prelim Apex guy, you just send him out to the pasture, in other words, because if you're fighting as an older fighter on the prelims of an Apex card, you're on your last fight or two, man.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of the prelims for the Apex card, did you get to see Ignacio Bahamadanis
I
versus
did not.
Tofik Musayev?
Bahamondes has been in a couple fights that I've seen before. I wasn't able to catch any of the prelims, but I did look at the canvas and notice that one side was just painted in red. And then I read online, they're like, yeah, that was the Bahamondes fight. He got cut wide open. If you watched it, feel free. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
It was pure carnage, man. It wasn't one-sided. Yes, Bahamondes got cut pretty heavily, and he was the one doing all the bleeding. But it was a good back and forth, constant fight at a high level. These two guys are tough as nails, and they put it all there in the center of the octagon as best they could. They went out there to put on a show, and both of them were trying to finish the fight the entire time. You could tell they had it on their mind. They wanted that 100,000 each.
Yeah, and that is a nice thing that Dana has done with the fight bonuses. It really does add a little bit of spice to these fights. A lot of times you see fighters, they'll use their style to win a fight, and maybe that's not the most intriguing for the average fan, if they're rolling around on the mat. But now that you have these bonuses that are thrown in there and they're talking about we want entertainment, I do think that we see people trying to go for it more than they have before. It doesn't always end, in a finish. Sometimes you have the decisions. But why not sweeten the pot a little bit for the guys that bring the action? Because let's face it, most MMA fans aren't MMA fans. They're kickboxing fans. And so when you see guys stand and bang, that's what people want. People got mad at the BMF at Charles Oliveira. Oh, that's not what a BMF does. He went out and won a mixed martial arts competition. What do you want from the guy? But again, most MMA fans aren't MMA fans.
No, they want K1 kickboxing back. And K1 was great for what it was. But me personally, I like mixed martial arts. I like the grappling. I like the chess match that includes all types of skills.
I mean, that's why we do it, right? I mean, that's why they started mixing the martial arts back in 1993. Can this style beat that style? Can that style beat this style? And there's so many different ways to do it, from karate to jujitsu to this man is a street fighter. I mean, you got all kinds of styles out here, and what's going to be most effective, what's going to work. And that's why they do it. So if you're great at striking, but I'm great at taking somebody down, I mean, hey, if I get you down, it's over. But if you can have a good sprawl game, if you have good anti-grappling, as we like to say on this podcast, then I'm in for a long night. So that's the beauty of it. That's the whole chess match is right there in the middle of the octagon, and who can get their style, who can impose their will, that's who's going to win. So that's the fun of it. That's why I like MMA.
Yep. And there was only one other thing that happened this card on the prelims that you absolutely never see. Bruce Buffer announced the wrong winner in one of the fights.
Oh, is he losing his fastball? Don't say it so, man. I love Bruce. I've seen him make a couple mistakes doing introductions. I remember one time not long ago, he announced the guy and he had the corner right, but he had the names backwards. And the fighters were just looking across the octagon at each other like, what the hell? And I mean, it's fine. It's funny. But yeah, that's got to be embarrassing for the guy.
when you've got live events, there are mistakes that are going to happen. We can't get around that. It's amazing how rarely Bruce makes the mistakes, especially pronouncing these names that we all struggle with.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the biggest Bruce fan there is. I'm not hating on the guy by any stretch. I think it's impressive that he gets it right 99.9% of the time. But when you have that little slip up, it's almost because he's so good at his job. It's
You
just
don't
like a
expect
wow
it.
moment.
Yeah, it's a wow moment. You don't expect it. It's like, did Bruce really make that mistake? Bruce
Exactly.
Buffer?
He, Bruce freaking Buffer, the man.
I
And I'm gonna tell you
recently,
what. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, whenever the UFC loses that man, it's gonna be a really sad day because we think of the faces of the UFC, and of course, people think Dana White and Joe Rogan. But for me, when Bruce Buffer isn't announcing, and David Martinez, nothing against the guy, right? I mean, hey, he's doing his job. God bless him. But he just does not live up to Bruce Buffer by any stretch of the imagination. If that's the guy who's going to be next in line, I think that's a massive step back for the UFC. I hope that's not the case. Again, nothing against the guy personally. I think he's probably a great guy, but Bruce Buffer brings an enjoyment and entertainment and excitement level. I mean, I'm jumping around sometimes. My wife thinks I'm crazy. I'm jumping around when they're doing the main event and they're announcing like my favorite fighter, like if it's a Poatan fight, and I can't even sit down. I'm so excited because this man's worked me into a frenzy. I don't want to see that man ever leave. So I don't root for any of these things to happen where he has a misstep. Hopefully that's just a one off. And, we don't have to worry about him retiring anytime soon because that man is the voice of the UFC.
Yeah, and the thing about Bruce is that you can tell just by looking at him when he's doing it that he loves the thrill of being in front of the crowd and introducing these guys. I like when he gets right in the face of the fighter, like he did with oh, what's his name? How am I forgetting this?
In the main event,
No, this the guy who likes to bark.
John Silva, Gene
Silva.
Silva.
He got square in Silva's face, and Silva was barking in the microphone while Buffer was doing the announcement on the other side of the mic. It You get moments like that when someone truly enjoys what they do. And Bruce brings that enjoyment every fight with the same intensity, whether it's an Apex first round prelim card or it's the Heavyweight Championship. He always gives the fighters that respect of putting his all into it, and you can tell he loves what he does.
Yeah, to me, the staple of a great, person in their profession is when it looks like they would do it for free, when it seems like they would do it for free. There's been announcers over the days in different sports. I won't bore you with the names, but I'd always say, "Hey, look, that guy looks like he'd be doing it for free. Like he's got a dream job." This guy embodies that. This is the man who stands in the center of that octagon with some of the scariest human beings, and yet he builds them up, and it's just like, man, this guy's a killer, and he's just like face to face with them, screaming in their face, but it's all positive stuff, of course, but it's just such a raw, real moment every time he's in there doing these announcements, especially the big ones, especially like the main event, and you got somebody who's a legend standing there. I mean, oh man, it's not a big fight if Bruce Buffer's not doing it. And just the idea or notion that he wouldn't be there ever, just I don't even want to think about it. Like I said, it's just he has to be there all the time. Maybe when his time comes and goes, they'll have a hologram of him. AI is getting so crazy, who knows, man. But
Well,
man, Bruce Buffer's awesome.
one of my goals for the Ground and Pound cast, I recently found that Bruce Buffer is on Cameo, and you can pay him to do an introduction for you and record it, and you have it for life. And at some point, I want us to have a Bruce Buffer introduction for the Ground and Pound cast. And I think that
Oh
would be
no.
really cool to be able to intro with.
God, that would be cool. I knew he was on Cameo. I didn't know he did stuff like that. That's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, it's just such a cool thing that someone that we both look up to so much,
For
we
sure.
could get them to do it. I mean, Chael's on there too, and I
I
definitely
love
would.
Uncle Chael, but he doesn't get the blood flowing like Bruce Buffer.
No, not at all. But could you imagine Bruce Buffer at our intro going, "Welcome to the Ground and Pound cast"?
Yeah, man. Or it's It's time for the ground and pound, guys. you know.
Well, next week we've got another, I think it's an Apex card, and the only thing that's got me excited about it is that is what we just saw.
Yeah,
We're
knowing that
looking
it
at
could end up being a bunch of really great fights.
it could end up being a bunch of really great fights. I mean, we got some big names on there. We got Renato Moicano going up against Chris Duncan. We got Jandaroba going against Ricci. And then after that, we don't really have that big of names.
No, we don't. We don't. And again, classic Apex style, right? It's going to be a whole. We watch these fights. We were talking about it before we even came on here. We watch these fights all the time, every week. I watch fights, and I haven't heard of most any of these guys. And I'm talking main card included. And again, we know the main event and the co-main event, but I mean, my goodness, I go down even in the prelims. I only recognize one name from the prelims. And it feels like a minor league system almost for whenever they go on the road. When they go on the road, you typically see some of the bigger names. The numbered cards, of course, all the names, at least most of them. But these Apex cards, man, it's like their farm league. It's like who's fighting who from where. But I say all that to say Duncan, to me, and I talked about this, last year, he was in one of the top 2 or 3 fights of the year for me. He fought Rebecca August 2nd, 2025. If you haven't seen that fight, Duncan versus Rebecca, absolute carnage, blood, just 2 guys standing there toe to toe. You talk about stand and bang. That was stand and bang at its absolute finest. Super entertaining fight. So from that alone, I know Duncan's going to bring it. He's game. He's really a guy that you don't have to worry about as far as entertainment goes. He's going to bring it. It's going to be something you're going to want to watch. So I think that makes for a good main event with Moicano. And of course, we've seen Moicano as recently as last year in a title fight, albeit he stepped in short notice versus Islam, and that fight was short. but that's a guy that we've seen go up against a number of guys and do very, very well. He fought it's slipping me, the Frenchman, Benoit Saint Denis, and butchered him. It was jiu-jitsu at its absolute peak finest. And, so we've seen him in there and do his thing. He's also had some tougher contests as well. Like I said, Islam, it took no time to go through him, but there's levels, and Islam's probably the number 1 level. But that should make for a good fight. The co-main, those are big names, as far as the ladies go. I'm not super intrigued by it, but there's a lot on the line as far as the women's division. We recently saw Verna Jandrioba fight Mackenzie Dern in a very competitive contest. And of course, Mackenzie won, but I mean, that was for a championship. So she's of the highest caliber. So she'll be in there versus Tabitha Ricci. Ricci's a good fighter. So that'll be interesting. Otherwise, I'm really just going to be watching to see who's going to be the next Larry and Douglas, because again, my overarching take from this whole card is Douglas. That's the guy that I circle, highlight. I want to watch him fight again. Maybe there's another situation on this card. I call it a farm league, and maybe that's a little bit of a slight, but at the same time, that's where the prospects are. So maybe we see that next prospect really rise above and shine on this card. And that's always a possibility of these Apex cards. You see somebody you never heard of who really just blows you away. And that's what I'm looking for. Maybe there's going to be somebody that jumps off the screen at me, and we'll have somebody to talk about.
Yep. Now, speaking of what we get to talk about next weekend, we're trying something new, aren't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm very excited about it. You want to tell them about it?
Yeah. So, the Ground and Pound cast isn't just on all of your Spotify and podcast places. We're also on YouTube. And next Saturday, with Vince out of town, the dude's going to be in Disney World for more than a week. I'm so jealous. And he sends us pictures just to rub it in. But with him out of town, we've decided that we're going to go rogue and do a watch along party on YouTube. So tune in to the Ground and Pound Cast YouTube channel. Come in with us, turn on your Paramount Plus. You get to listen to Rick and I talk about what's going on in real time, give our honest feedback. And we always talk about in our group chat what we're saying while the fights are going on. you'll actually get to hear that live conversation if you join us.
I think it's a really great way to connect with the fans. And so, we'll be there and we'll feel like if you guys want to jump in, we'll be able to, answer questions, have that back and forth. We welcome that. I look forward to it. I think this is a really fun way to do it. And so I think the Poundcast is great. I love being on it. It's an honor to be on it and fill in for Vince. And I enjoy it, but I think this is just going to be an added level and layer to this onion that is the Ground and Poundcast. And it's something that should be a lot of fun. You see, we keep it buttoned up and G-rated on here, but when it's on YouTube, we're going to be a little looser. Or at least I will. I'm going to be a little loose with my words. I might have a drink or two. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun environment. We're going to be able to break things down real time and just enjoy the fights with you guys. Instead of me texting and my thumbs going crazy, I can just be lazy and talk. And I love that. So I'll be enjoying doing that. And, between the two of us, we'll have plenty to say. And again, we welcome you guys. Talk to us, give us your thoughts, give us your ideas. Maybe you'll see things that we're not seeing that we can incorporate or, whatever it may be. But the more interaction, the better. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and a lot of the time when we're doing the Poundcast, I'm working off of notes from the fights that I had watched. My takes, whenever I'm actually watching and watching what's going on, are a lot more crisp and sharp, and I notice more details than I can put into my notes and just bring up later in a recap.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's fun. And that way, I mean, of course, you still take the notes and stuff and what have you for your own reference for later if you like. But I think there's nothing better than that real time feedback. And if you guys are wondering what we're thinking or how we're seeing things, you'll actually kind of get a peek behind the curtain because instead of us coming with notes and, we sat down and came up with this and we're going to talk about this and all of that is great. I think it's a wonderful thing. But to have that real time feedback is another thing. It's another level. And that's just something we'd like to provide.
Yep. And we look forward to doing that and interacting with our audience and really getting to do something at that next level during the fights.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And don't let there be a big knockout. Y'all might see me go crazy. But hey, that's all part of it, right?
Yep. And the other part, we're going to show our faces.
Yeah, yep. You get to see my ugly mug and, you get to deal with that. So
Yep.
there you go.
Well, I believe that's all for the Ground and Pound cast today. Tune in next Saturday on YouTube, and we will be breaking down everything for Moicano versus Duncan.
See y'all then. Looking forward to it.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.